Okay, now we're gonna get into how we mix the body filler. You know what? I'm not a chemist. I don't make this stuff. We just use this stuff, and I'm kind of just relaying how people have told us to do it, the suppliers and vendors over the last 20 years. So if I'm wrong and you have better ideas, please let me know. Luckily, we've dealt with a lot of really great people. Like even on this, for this particular, even for this particular incident where we're doing this vehicle, I'm trying to train Randy, and he's new into this. We're trying to teach him the right way to do it. The problem I found is at certain steps, you'll see a lot of people get, one, discouraged because it's harder than you think it is, and two, it takes a little bit longer. And then you'll notice there's certain things that happen for body guys. They do things called mounding, where to get rid of waves, they put too much filler on. They'll do things like get to a certain point with their body work, and then they start going backwards. You know, you'll get it really straight, and then you'll move to a lighter grit paper, and then you start breaking through and doing that, and next thing you know, your body work's actually getting wavier. So what we're trying to do is I try to train our guys to understand why that happens and avoid that and not do that. One thing that we actually had just went through is we were getting to that point, and I'm like, how do we stop this? You know, and I'm like looking at different chemicals, and you know, some guys use the spray body filler and they put that on there because it's a little thicker and they block it down. But then I've heard a lot of guys say that in show cars, it could shrink a little bit, it could shrink a lot. And we really don't want that. Plus, we don't want to build up an extra millage that we really don't need. And I've always been under the philosophy that, you know, everybody's always like, you got to get this body filler and this putty and this and this and that. Honestly, I use like 2 body fillers from Evercoat, and we've used them for a long time. Joe came in, I think, 2 years ago and switched us to the 125 and the 112, I believe it was. And it was really good. It's a good product and we love it. And there's really no need for all these extra putties and fillers and all this stuff as far as I'm concerned, because this stuff is such a great product. And when I have a question like I did last week, I end up messaging Joe. And even though he doesn't handle Evercoat anymore, he still answers my questions, which are pretty much the same thing you always know is the stuff's so good, you shouldn't need all this other stuff. But because we're panel batching on a lot of vehicles or filling a whole panel with skim coat, we need a little bit extra time. So he actually told us to go to, I believe it's the 144 Ultra Extra, which we're going to be using on either this video or the next video. I'm going to kind of go through and show you what not to do and why we're not supposed to do it. You know, for our body filler, you don't use cardboard. You're not supposed to use cardboard. The reason that we're told not to use cardboard is because when you mix your MEKP, when you mix your hardener is basically methyl ethyl ketone peroxide and whatever magical creams and coloring they put in here. But the truth is, unless it's changed, I haven't even looked, I'm just assuming. But anyways, when we were told 20 years ago, the MEKP would actually absorb into the cardboard and not into your body filler. And in doing so, that's what actually catalyzes it and makes it hard. Coloring and all that other paste and all that other filler stuff just to make you look like you're stirring it up is what is in the body filler, and you think that it is, but it's not. That brings us to this. So it's kind of funny because 20-something years ago, our teachers taught us to 1 inch of hardener per golf ball size. If it's hot, a little less. If it's cold, a little more. I never even realized there's instructions on the top of the can. Randy actually showed me the other day, which they don't even make any sense to me. But it's warm out today. It's in the 80s, so we're gonna do about that much, which is a little less than 1 inch per golf ball size for what I have mixed up. Now, my hardeners on top of my body filler, you're never supposed to do this. They say when you do this, you're putting air into the body filler, and you don't want air in there because that gives air pockets, and that makes your body work crappy. Get all the air pockets out. And so what you're doing is you're actually running this back and forth, making sure there's no air, there's no debris, making sure that it's all the same color and consistent. I'm gonna scrape the edges off, make sure that this goes in here. So we're making sure everything's mixed up. Now I'm doing this video, so now I'm gonna work kind of quick and messy. Okay, so here we are, right? Okay, so now we got our body filler. You wanna make sure your initial coats are really tight so that it gets in there. And I'm gonna move kind of quickly, and it really mix up enough body filler for this whole hood, which I like to do the whole thing at one shot. So we're just forcing this in here. Really trying to force this in the crack, because from what I'm told, this new body fillers are all made to go into really fine cracks. You want to force them in there. You don't want a really coarse, heavy 36 grit scratch, because then it's going to shrink. So we're just going to get this in here. Trying to get this all in. I like to play with my body filler. When it's wet, you can take a loose piece of paper and kind of knock down any loose stuff and high spots, no pressure, just kind of knock it down on the edges, clean them all up. We do this by hand, no pressure at all. Just go back and forth, always working in different directions. What I want to show is, you can see here, even though the whole thing's been filled with body filler, and there's still some lows in here and some mild highs, it's pretty actually, believe it or not, even though it looks like a lot of body filler, there's really not, because you can see everywhere it's actually breaking all through. I mean, this is almost pretty much nothing. So now I'm kind of excited because we're going to try out this new body filler that was recommended by Evercoat, which is a very slow drying filler, so that we can skim coat this whole thing. We'll let it lock up, and then we'll be able to block sand it out, and it should be perfect. Okay, so now we're using the Rage Ultra Extra 144. This one actually has a whole thing that says stir it, which we know, because if you don't stir it, then the resins are trapped at the top and the bottom will end up drying out or whatever. Obviously, you clean your area. It shows your initial sanding with 80 grit and then feather to 180 grit. We usually do 80 to 180, and we actually bring our bodywork to 220, sometimes 320 before we put our primers on there, which I know it might be too fine, but we like it that way. Hardener 2% to 3% by weight, so if you weigh it, you know, whatever. Thin layers, no more than a 1/4 inch. I don't think I've ever had a 1/4 inch of body filler on a vehicle at all. Never mind layers of that. 120 minutes, so that gives us a long time to really roll out that material and just squeegee it out and let it lay out so it looks really nice. So I'm really excited to try this. Then the final one is 80 to 180. Oh, and you know, one thing I want to add. Again, the only reason I use a lot of Evercoat products, I've been using Evercoat products since I was 16 years old, and we're not sponsored or endorsed or anything by them. It's just in our area, it's always our paint suppliers really, a few of the guys from the beginning actually spent a lot of time marketing and promoting and showing us and spending time with us, so it was just easier for us to use, and we kind of grew up using this stuff. And now we actually almost switched about 3 years ago, and I think that's when our supplier, actually no, it wasn't even, one of our guys had Joe come over, and it was just like the same thing. It was just really good customer correspondence, so it's a good product, and I like to be able to check with people if there's a problem and get an answer back. So that's the only reason why we use Evercoat, and I've never had a problem with it. It's been, like I said, a long time, but we don't have any failures, so it's pretty good stuff. Let's see what this looks like inside. I'm curious, because I don't think a lot of places around here use it. Our supplier that we got this from actually had to go to the warehouse to get it. Oh, a little bit different color, which is exciting. Grab one of our paint palettes. I'm going to clean off all this. Totally different consistency than our normal body filler, which I thought it would be really thin feeling, but it's actually, well, this is the lid, so let's see what the inside looks like. So I'm going to stir this up. You can see it's actually, it almost has like a neon green color to it. Oop, look at that. I'm always trying to work so neat, and then I work like a slob when we're videotaping. Already off to a bad start here. User error. I'm gonna stir this up. What's funny is I thought this would have a lot of liquid on the top of it. A lot of times you get a body filler and the resin actually goes to the top, but it's actually not. We're gonna try to do this without putting air into it. We don't really wanna put a lot of air into it. I'm scraping the sides and kind of flopping it over. Different consistency. So let's try this out. One thing I think I forgot to mention, you always want to knead your hardener because the liquids come out and you just want to keep working it back together. It's kind of a good habit to always just get into it, squishing it down, making sure that there's the actual MEKP stuff, if it's in here, is good. So, I don't know why we have a Martin Senior hardener with Evercoat body filler. Huh, that's weird. Okay, well, let's use Evercoat. We're gonna use Evercoat with that. So let's just knead this together. I'm gonna get a little air out of here. Squish, squish, squish. This actually feels pretty good. It doesn't feel like it's separated. Which normally you could feel the liquid separated, which we'll know as soon as we go to squeeze it out. If you go to squeeze it and all the liquid comes out from the top, you know you didn't knead it well. Okay, so We're gonna mix up pretty much what we need here. Yeah, it is. Well, it's weird. It's a different consistency. It actually comes out kind of thin, almost like a putty, but it feels pretty good. I'm kind of excited to try this stuff out. Paint paddle. Put our lid back on. Okay. Now I'm using a smaller spreader. You could use bigger spreaders, but I like the smaller one or medium-sized one because you're getting the amount of filler on you need, but you're able to really force the body filler into all the cracks and grooves so it sticks well. So I'm actually, you know, some of the bigger spreaders, they're so thin, soft, that when you go to push it in, they kind of flop around and you can't really get the body filler in nice and tight like we're doing now. You'll notice if you ever do body work and the surface is not clean and dusty and you're forcing it in, the body work actually balls up, so you know you're not getting the body filler in because the dust is kind of keeping it from going on it. So I just want to get a nice, consistent, even coat all the way across this. I'm rushing, even though even. I want to cover everything, because if you don't cover everything, you have any high spots, you're starting off with trying to just get this worked out the best I can. It does give you a lot longer time to work with this and try to lay this material out.